In South Korea, the Constitutional Court will hold the first hearing of suspended President Yoon's impeachment trial. Arguments are due to begin on Tuesday afternoon in a trial to decide the fate of President Yoon Suk Yeol, who was impeached after his short-lived bid to impose martial law threw the country into the worst political chaos in decades. The full-fledged hearing will begin exactly a month after the case was filed on 14th of last month. The Constitutional Court must decide within 180 days whether to remove Yoon from office or restore his presidential powers. Yoon also faces a criminal investigation for alleged insurrection, with authorities seeking to execute an arrest warrant after he ignored summons to appear for questioning. Separate to the trial, a joint team of investigators from the Corruption Investigation Office, which is probing Yoon over insurrection, and police are preparing a fresh attempt to arrest Yoon. An earlier attempt failed after Yoon's presidential guards blocked access to investigators. If the new warrant is executed successfully, Yoon would become the first sitting South Korean president to be arrested. If eventually convicted in that case, Yoon faces prison or even death penalty. All right, DD India's Anil Thomas joins us with the latest from New Delhi. Anil, good morning. We've just given a broad outline of what all is happening in South Korea. You get us more. How tough is it for Yoon at present?
Well, good morning, Preeti. Well, nothing much has changed. One takes a look at how things have gone about. This particular meeting that's going to take place, or this particular constitutional bench that's going to sit, remember, it's besides the Supreme Court that exists. It's considered to be, the book that South Koreans go to, or South Koreans lawmakers go to, especially when it comes to matters related to the Constitution, and they follow it to the T. So that's one part of it. The first is, there are going to be 5 hearings to it. There is a time period of 180 days. And I think Yoon's lawyers are very clear right from day one. Today, it's very unlikely that Yoon is going to leave his palace in Seoul and reach for the hearing. His lawyers have clearly indicated it's almost unlikely or impossible that Yoon is going to appear in person, looking at the security factors that have been placed before the court. So the next hearing is on 16th. There are 5 hearings that take place that begin today on the 14th. You've got one on 16th. Got the third one on 21st, 23rd, and the last one on February 4th. That's the cycle for this particular hearings that are going to take place, and a full time period of 180 days. I think Yoon's lawyers are very clear. Let's use up this 6 months. There's going to be let's see how things play out, and then let's take it to a logical conclusion. But in all likelihood, the bench that is there before that's going to decide the fate is not very much in favor of Yoon. But having said that, the bench is generally not in favor of anybody, because remember, there are 9 judges on the bench. 3 are selected by the president. So, of the 3, 2 are selected by Yoon and his cabinet. Then there are 3 that are selected by the Supreme Court and 3 by others, which also includes the other political factions. Of the 8-judge bench, I think only 2 would directly or indirectly be appointed by Yoon and his colleagues or his cabinet. So, in that proposition too, Yoon doesn't have a good chance of seeing it through. But having said all this, 180 days is a long period of time. A lot could change in South Korea. Remember, the last 6 weeks, we have seen political chaos take place, 2 presidents being impeached. And that's just the beginning of the long saga that South Korea has seen. Remember, South Korea is the 4th largest economy in the Asian continent. And a lot depends on South Korea, the political developments that take place. And at least on the present day context, inside South Korea, within South Korea, and beyond South Korea, Asia and the world, the message, the political tumultuous journey that South Korea is facing is something that the world is seeing with shock.
All right, Anil, now Yoon faces a criminal impeachment, a criminal case there, criminal investigation, in fact, for alleged insurrection. He also, faces the impeachment trial. Put all this together, what options are really available to him at present?
Well, there are 2 things that Yoon, in particular, his lawyers are looking forward to, especially when it comes to this constitutional bench that he is attending. There are 5 hearings, as I mentioned, and he's also got 180-day time span. That's the first part of it. To the other criminal charges that are against him, the chief investigating officer or the criminal investigating team that's trying to arrest, who's had a failed attempt at arresting Yoon, will make another bid. I think this time around, they have warned people who are protesting, people who are objecting, pro as well as against, to stay away from this particular political chaos that's developing in South Korea. It's a double whammy that Yoon faces. And in this entire political, mishmash that's happening in South Korea, Yoon, you would be surprised to know that Yoon has got a 3% salary hike. Remember, he is still purely on paper, but that's for the constitutional bench to decide whether he stays or he doesn't stay, whether his powers are to be curtailed or not. That is for the constitutional bench. That has a 180 period timeline. In the midst, you've seen him get a 3% salary hike, whereas the minimum salary hike that South Koreans get is generally 1.5%. But having said that, Yoon getting 3%, not only Yoon, the next person who came in as an acting president, who's also impeached, has also got a 3% hike. If one puts that into context, the South Koreans are feeling a bit cheated. The house is divided, especially when it comes to Yoon getting these benefits, irrespective of the fact that there are two charges, one in the constitutional court, one a criminal charges against him. He still happens to get a salary hike of 3%. So, it's all not boiling down well in South Korea. One needs to understand that, Yoon troubles keep mounting, but Yoon with his bunch of lawyers, the best lawyers in South Korea are defending him. And that's something that's come to his aid time and again. But if one takes a look at the larger graph, he could just be playing with time, not much that Yoon can do, because, at the end of the day, he'll either have to be arrested or he'll wait for the constitution bench ruling to come. Six months time frame is all that he has where he can play around long. But I think there has been a precedent where these kind of things have happened in South Korea before with presidents, 2004, 2017, two impeachments that went against the president. So this is something very similar that you would see. This is not something new that South Koreans have seen, but surely for the world, yes. But for South Korea, this is something very common. I think this particular story that's played out, especially the Yoon story, especially when it comes to impeachment, his acting in also getting impeached. 6 weeks of political chaos that South Korea has seen. I think it's time to bring some kind of semblance, especially into the politics in South Korea. And I think all the political leaders need to come into play, because now the acting president who's sitting in the chair is not ready, at least, to take any sides. He said, let the law take its own course.
Anil, very quickly, now something of this sort which South Korea is witnessing, you tell us, is not common there. Does it mean that South Korea will not be advertently be affected by this? Added to this, will it also have any regional consequences?
Well, surely. First, South Koreans, especially those backing Yoon and those against it, there is a conflict between them, and it's for the investigating team to now make some kind of headway. They have again got an arrest warrant issued, but can they make progress? That's the first question that one is looking to get answers for. They have at least acted tough, but it is unlikely that they can arrest Yoon. And this particular, especially the chief of staff indicating that Yoon is ready to cooperate with the investigating team, clearly, leaves a mixed bag, especially when it comes to the two houses that are looking into it. The constitutional bench, he's not attending this one. If there is a security cover that he gets, it's likely that he can attend the second one that's scheduled for the 16th, is what his lawyers have indicated. But the chief of his staff or his security has indicated that, he's ready to cooperate, however, whatever be the situation that arises out of it. So that's where you leave the investigation part of it. South Korea going through this political chaos is not good for Asia in particular. Remember, your first impact that all this could see is investors who are looking to invest in the region. And this particular political chaos, this particular tumultuous, political scenario does not leave hope in the minds of investors. I think investors will pull out of the market, and that's something South Korea needs to be careful about. Remember, it's the 4th largest economy in Asia, and it is something, and it is also, from a geopolitical point of view, a great ally of US, United States of America, and also a great power in the Asian continent. So South Korea's political instability could have ramifications inside Asia, inside the continent, outside it. And I think that is something that the world is watching closely on this developing issue, which has got many twists and turns still to follow, as this particular development takes place over the next 6 months.
All right, Anil, we'll leave it. Thank you so much for joining in with those details.